It was late Thursday night when I sat on a bench with my pants around my ankles, listening to people laugh at me. They thought it was all funny, especially the fact that I had no idea about anything. How could a guy not know that his wife was cheating on him and doing it right under his nose? Adam Walker, who said he was involved with my wife, was telling his friend Kyle Roberts how he seduced her at a party 3 weeks ago. At this party, I was called to investigate a break-in at a local art gallery. I was only gone for about 2 hours, but I was back before the evening was over. I found my wife at a table with 3 other people, one of whom was Adam Walker. The other couple sitting there was his boss and his wife. My name is Michael Adams, and I am an insurance investigator for a global security firm that deals exclusively with high-value property clients. You probably don't know her name, as we cater to a very exclusive clientele. I got into it straight out of college and have been with them for nearly 11 years. I am 38 years old and in the prime of my life. My job is to investigate the circumstances of incidents where there may be a large compensation claim. Most of the time, it's routine, but sometimes things get pretty exciting. I investigate mostly thefts and robberies, but occasionally car accidents if more than 1 or 2 of our vehicles are involved. I am very good at it and have a reputation in my industry. I am often rented out to other companies at a high price. I often have to go away, but never for long, and if a lengthy investigation is required, I have people to stay on site and get the job done. I have been married to Jessica for 11 years, and we have 2 wonderful children, Amelia, 10, and Grace, 8. Jessica is a year older than me and works at the same company as a secretary to Robert Jameson, the president. She and I met and got married before she joined the company, but when she lost her job, I wanted her to try to work for my company. We had to get permission from HR because it was against company policy in terms of nepotism, but since I was a valued employee, they agreed to hire her. Fortunately, Robert Jameson was looking for a new secretary, and Jessica had more than 5 years of experience as a personal assistant at a large corporation. He interviewed her and immediately liked her. She accepted the position as his personal secretary. The 2 people I mentioned earlier, Adam Walker and Kyle Roberts, were insurance specialists who wrote policies for large companies or individuals with very high-value assets. For me, they were only acquaintances, not friends. Both worked for Nathan Clark, a good guy who was a good friend of mine. I reported directly to Robert Jameson and worked independently most of the time, but occasionally received interesting assignments from Nathan. The conversation I overheard took place a week after the party. I went to the restroom to relax and sat there for a while, pushing and sweating. I had eaten some bad seafood for lunch a day ago and thought it might have been a little stale. While I was cursing my fate, Adam and Kyle walked in. They seemed to ignore the closed bathroom door and began talking about the party. That's when Adam started bragging to Kyle about his latest conquest. I listened to the story with increasing pain in my intestines that had nothing to do with cramps and sweat from bad fish. How did you get into her? I wondered. I didn't think she was that kind of woman. Go ahead, tell me, Kyle asked. We did a couple of dances, and she was pretty friendly. But Michael was there, and she just smiled when I asked her to come to my office. She said Michael wouldn't be too happy if she did that. So what did you do? Kyle inquired. Well, I talked her into having a drink with me at the bar, while Michael was dancing with Lisa, his secretary. I asked the bartender to make me a double shot, and then switched our drinks while she was talking to someone. This was the easy part. I just wanted to get her a little tipsy so I could spend more time with her on the dance floor. You know, take what you can get, Kyle responded. Yeah, but Michael was still there. So what could you really do? Hey, wait a minute. Didn't you arrange for his departure? Hell no, it was just dumb luck. We were doing a quick dance when he came over to tell her he needed to leave for a while. She wanted him to take her home first, but he told her to stay and have fun as he was sure he could return soon. She wasn't too interested, but she stayed. She sat with me, Nathan, and his wife. And what happened next? Finally, the good part. Well, Michael left, and I ordered her another drink. I made Jo do the double again, and she didn't notice the difference. We did a couple of slow dances, and by then, she was almost out of it. She leaned on me while I grabbed her gently, and a couple of times, she pressed herself against me and giggled. I figured 1 or 2 more drinks would be it. I took her to another one, and she drank it like a pro. I can see exactly how this is happening. Well, yes, another double, and she felt dizzy. I invited her to go outside to get some air, and she readily agreed. I took her to my car, and we sat in the back seat. She was almost out of it, so I slid my hand under her skirt. In general, she wasn't against it. She wanted everything. I gave it to her, and she liked it. It was delicious. I can't believe Jessica did this. She never seemed capable of cheating on her husband or giving in to someone like you. Are you sure this really happened? I'm not feeding you nonsense. I have a date with her next Sunday when she usually goes to get her hair done. She said she would meet me and that I would book a hotel room. I'm going to spend the day with her. You'll see. Well, I envy you, dude. Jessica is truly something. I always wondered what Michael did to deserve her. Maybe you can set me up with her when you get tired of her. Maybe. Maybe we'll see. For now, don't even think about this conversation. I don't want anything to go wrong. Fine, no problem. They both came out of the restroom while I sat there trying to keep my stomach from churning. I couldn't believe what I just heard. Could this really be happening? I began to remember that evening. It was almost 11:30 p.m. when I returned to the party, and Jessica was sitting with Adam, Lisa, and Nathan Clark. Jessica didn't seem to be tipsy when I sat down and was talking to Lisa about the kids. Adam spoke to me, but didn't stay more than a few minutes before leaving. I noticed Jessica say something to him, but I didn't think anything of it. The only thing strange that evening was that when we got home, Jessica wanted to spend time together. It wasn't that unusual, but she usually didn't want to do it this late. She was especially enthusiastic that night. Guilt, repentance. Maybe a week had passed after the party, and I didn't see any difference in Jessica or her behavior. She never brought up the fact that I left during the party or what she did when I was not there. I asked her, and she said that she danced with Adam and Nathan, but mostly just watched. She and Lisa talked about school and the play the kids were in, and that was it. She said she would have preferred to come home when I left. I decided to watch her more carefully. Hey, Davy, do you have any plans for this Sunday? I was going to play golf, if that's okay. I looked at her face for her reaction. This Sunday, right after lunch, I'll get my hair done. This will take me at least an hour or an hour and a half. Where will you go to play golf? So, she was going to get her hair done. How does Adam know about this if she didn't tell them? I didn't even know this. It seemed like everything was too real. I think the country club. I'll see if Kyle Roberts can join me. I think he and Nathan are difficult, don't they? I have no idea. I know Nathan does, but I don't know Kyle or his wife very well, so I don't know. Me neither. Hey, what about Adam Walker? You talked to him at the party, didn't you? He might as well go too. Jessica turned and looked at me strangely. She paused before answering. Why do you want to go with him? He is difficult. I had to dance with him a couple of times at a party, but he really creeped me out. Is she trying to talk me out of asking him if he would go with me, or is she trying to convince me that she doesn't like him either way? It was very unusual for her to talk about someone else like that. Oh, I don't know much about him, but he's a friend, and they seem to share everything. Maybe this is a bad idea. They'll just call Phil and Charlie. They always want me to join them. That sounds like a better plan. Stay away from Adam. You shouldn't mess with him. Okay, he's not on my list anymore. So you don't mind golf? I don't mind because it'll still be enjoyable. Why don't we have dinner at the Riverstone later? You'll have a nice haircut, and you'll relax after playing golf. You can take me out and be proud of me. I can give Grace and Amelia to my parents." I agreed, and we planned to meet at home at 5:30 p.m. on Sunday to get ready. If I had been careful, I could have gotten all the information I needed to confront her that day. It would be very nice to tell her everything over dinner in one of the most beautiful places in the city. The next day at work, I went down to the control room to get some things I needed to monitor my wife and her associate. I decided to take one of the company's surveillance vans. I could leave it in the company parking lot until Sunday morning when I went golfing. I grabbed 2 small transmitters to put in her purse and car, and one of the small GPS units I could install in her car. This would tell me exactly where she was at every moment. The van was also video capable, but I couldn't decide what to do with it since Adam said they were going to a motel. There's no way I could film. Maybe I could put the camera in her jacket, but only if I knew for sure that she was going to wear it. I could try, but I wasn't sure. When she goes somewhere, I can follow her through the GPS unit. The surveillance van can tap into its signal, so I can monitor her location on the van's grid. It was programmed with local street maps, so I could locate the actual address within 30 meters. The audio transmitters picked up any voices, and I could record them in the van. This could all be done automatically, so I wouldn't even have to be in the van. All I have to do is leave it a mile from where she was that week. I plan to spend the rest of the time just observing. I was very good at this, as this was what I did for a living. I looked at Kyle and Adam, but didn't see anything unusual. I usually visited my loving wife at least once a day, but now I visited a little more often. I still hadn't seen anything to make me suspicious, but I decided to try to see what I could get from Kyle. He was working on policies for a large factory complex, and I used to spend some time just looking at the site and putting together contingency plans for a possible disaster. This was called risk analysis and was part of any risk insurance process. That day, I stopped at his desk across from Adam. He was working on his project. "Hello, Kyle. Today I'd like to take a look at the Morgan facility plan. Do you have time to take me?" He looked up with a distracted expression on his face until he realized what I was talking about, and then simply shrugged. "Of course I can go anytime. I still need to go back there to take some pictures. When do you want to go?" "How about an hour or so?" "Great. I'll stop along the way and pick you up at your desk afterward." I said a few more words, and as I turned the corner, I looked back just in time to see a grin between Kyle and Adam. They looked at me the whole time until I left their sight. Interesting. I decided I was going to make Kyle pay. He wasn't guilty of anything other than colluding with Adam and making rude remarks about my wife, but he knew about the plan and decided to watch and scam me. So he was just as guilty as far as I was concerned. Kyle pulled up next to me about an hour later as planned, and we left in my SUV. I inserted one of the small transmitters into the car console to capture any conversation in or around the SUV. I wanted to have on record some of what I was going to say to Kyle, something that would only be between him and me. As we left the parking lot and began the 25-minute drive to Adams, I spoke. "So tell me, Kyle, did you enjoy last week's party?" "I wasn't there, Michael. I was on a trip, so I missed all the fun." "What was interesting, Kyle? How did Adam sleep with my wife? Is this what you missed?" Kyle was stunned and didn't know what to say. He stuttered and shifted in his chair and actually reached for the door handle until he realized where he was. Finally, he fell back and looked at me. "How do you know all of this?" "All I know is what Adam told me. I don't even know if this is true. Do you think he would lie about something like that? Do you think he made it up?" "I don't think so." "No, but how did you know? You weren't even there." "From what I heard, you've been gone for a couple of hours. That's when everything happened. Adam said he got her tipsy and then took her to his car. As far as I know, this is not your concern. I just want to know what else Adam told you. Does he have any plans for another meeting?" This was to see if I could trust everything this idiot told me. He said they were going to do it on Sunday when she was supposed to get her hair done. This time, he was going to rent a room. That's all I know, honestly, Michael. Well, I want to thank you for being a good friend and telling me this. I said sarcastically. I know you wouldn't want to be part of something like that. You were going to tell me anyway, weren't you? Yes, sure. I like you and Jessica. I wouldn't want something like that to happen to you, and Adam is a real jerk. Sorry you made me think I feel like a real fool, a hypocritical piece of crap. What did he say? Oh yeah, couldn't he be involved after Adam was done with her? With these words, I reached into the console and turned off the recorder. This was what I wanted to have later. What I wanted to say now was not written down. It's not a problem, Kyle. As long as you do everything as I tell you, you'll be fine. Fail me, and you will be in a world of pain. Is it clear, Kyle? He just shook his head affirmatively. He got the point. One more thing, Kyle. Nothing from our conversation should reach Adam. He doesn't know that I know, and you won't tell them. If I find out you said anything to him, he'll beat the crap out of you first, and then make sure you get fired. It's known that you can't be trusted. Do you understand me? You know I have ways to monitor you and Adam, so he'll know if you mess up. I won't tell Adam anything. I won't even talk to him if you want. No, do what you always do and let him talk. That's all you need to do. There is no problem if you even agree with him now. I know the truth. Just remember what I said, and everything will be fine. We didn't talk much after that, and spent the next 2 hours standing there without saying a word. He did his job, and I did mine. I had what I needed, and Kyle would be left out too. He just didn't need to know right now. This week was one of the longest of my life. I kept a close watch on my wife, but she was not doing anything unusual. Friday evening arrived, and the children went to their school dance class for children, which was supposed to end around 9:30 p.m. I was sitting in the living room watching TV when Jessica came in and sat on my lap. She put her arms around my neck and started pressing her ear to my ear. We have about 2 hours before I go pick up the kids. Don't you want to spend time together? Although I was a little disheartened and angry about what was happening, I was also human. I became affectionate, grabbed her around the waist, and pressed her tightly to me. I kissed her tenderly. Take me upstairs to our bedroom right now. I want you, and I want it now. I needed no prompting and followed her up the stairs to our bedroom, all the while watching her. On the way, we started to undress, and then there was incredible intimacy between us. When it was all over, we simply lay in each other's arms, not feeling the need to speak or disrupt the mood with action. This was love at its finest. For a while, I forgot my doubts and fears that this could very well end for us. I wanted to forget and believe that it was all a lie, but she wasn't meant to be that way. We need to do this more often, don't we? We seem to be out of sync for a while. Let's not let this happen again. Fine. We'll definitely work on this. How much time do we have? A minute to take a quick shower. I have to pick up the children after 9. But we can pick them up later if you want. Now or wait until our date on Sunday night. I can ask the children to stay at their mother's for the night. How about this? I'm on a date. Anything else on Sunday? How is it? Okay. You have golf, and I have a meeting with the hairdresser. Then, love, we have a dinner date. And after that, it'll be yours whenever you want. And you better do lots and lots of that for me. Do you have a better offer now? No. Okay. Then we're in touch. Jessica quickly got dressed and went to get the children. I lay there for a while, just remembering what had just happened. How could this woman spend time with me like that if she had been involved with that person? I knew she was smart, but was she also a good actor? Something was definitely wrong, and I was going to find out on Sunday. While she was gone, I checked the transmitters and found that they were working fine. I planned to install them Friday night in her car and purse. I had everything ready except for one more meeting with Kyle Roberts. I needed to find out what hotel Adam had booked. Kyle would find out for me, or I would do something he wouldn't like. The next morning, I called Kyle and asked him to meet me in the break room. He agreed without comment. When he came in, I was sitting at one of the tables. He joined me without saying anything, and I quickly got to the point. Kyle, my friend, I need you to find out from Adam where he plans to take Jessica on Sunday. I need the name of the motel and where it's located. All you have to do is catch him somewhere alone and ask him. Tell him that you think he's feeding you nonsense, and that if he tells you where he's taking her, you'll believe him. I smiled at Kyle as he tried to figure out how he could do what I asked. He was afraid that I would do something if he didn't. Finally, he agreed but asked how I would know if I would tell him where they would meet. I told him not to worry about it. I have ways. With that, he walked away, but not before I hugged him and placed one of the transmitters under the collar of his jacket, reminding him of our agreement. He was so scared of me that he never felt anything. It was almost invisible, held in place by glue, and he didn't notice it. I returned to my office and turned on the receiver. The place was quiet, but I knew Kyle was back at his desk and talking to Adam. I heard him ask Adam to meet him in 10 minutes in the copy room. Adam agreed, and then nothing happened until Kyle stood up to meet Adam. I went back to listening. What happened, buddy? Do you have problems with policies? I'm the best, you know. Nonsense, Adam. I was on set with Michael yesterday, and he doesn't seem to have any problems at home. I asked him if he was okay, and he said something about how it couldn't be better. I think you're feeding me nonsense about his wife. Hey, dude, nothing but the truth. I wouldn't lie about something like that. Why do you not believe me? Where are you taking her on Sunday? You said motel. What motel? Maybe if you show me the receipt for the room or something, I'll believe you. Otherwise, I think you're in trouble. Oh yeah, I already have a reservation at the Sunset Lodge on Birch Road for Sunday afternoon. I can check in at 2 p.m., and she will be there by 2:15. How do you like this fact? You can call Skyline and check. My name on the reservation is Adam Walker. Is this enough for you? Do you want to use my cell phone? Okay, I think this will do. I really envy you. Adam, Jessica is truly something. I hope you know that she has a good marriage with Michael that you are trying to ruin. You better be careful and think about it. It's not my problem if she's ready. So am I anyway. How good can a marriage be if she wants time with me? That was all that was worth hearing. So I turned off the receiver and just let it record the rest. Now I was almost ready to believe everything. I was really hoping that Adam would back down and admit that he made it all up, but now he had confirmed the number and was just waiting. At least I had the address, so I could connect it to the equipment in the van and let the rest work automatically. Maybe I could just park the van there on Friday night, turn on the equipment on Sunday around noon, and forget about it. Everything else would be done automatically, and I wouldn't need to be nearby. I didn't want to see or hear my wife as she tore my heart out and stuffed it in the toilet. Now I was lost. I could only continue and try to get what I needed to get back at her, Adam, and Kyle. The first thing I did was call the motel, and they confirmed that Adam was registered. At least part of it was true. Now I just had to wait until Friday evening. But then I had a thought. What if I could take a photo of them entering the motel room? I decided to visit the motel that day and see what I could do. I walked into the Sunset Lodge office and waited for the clerk. He was an unscrupulous character, which was good for me. Honesty is not what I was looking for right now. Hi, friend. I am an investigator for an insurance company, and I need information. I have an ID and a warrant for you. With that, I quickly flashed my badge and handed him a genuine document, which to most people looked like a search warrant. It was a fake, but I was counting on the fact that he was not smart enough and that he would be easy to deceive. The $100 I slipped to him didn't hurt either. Yes, sure. What do you want to know? I asked him to confirm Adam Thompson's reservation and ask if he had a room number. He said no, so I asked if he could give him a room on the first floor overlooking Birch Road. He tricked and tickled until I slipped in another $50, and finally he gave me a room number that would allow me to shoot a video. I let him know about the van that would be parked on his property, and he just shrugged and said it was no big deal. I thanked him again for his help and gave him another $50 for his silence. He gave me a devilish grin and put the bills in his pocket. After I left, I decided that I could now get the video I wanted by pointing the camera through the front window of the van, which I would park in front of their room. Now I was packed. Friday at work was pretty tough for me. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I walked up to Robert Jameson's office under the pretext of talking about my visit to an art gallery that had been robbed. He didn't really need to know, but I wanted to see my wife. As I walked down the hallway, her face lit up when she saw me. She waved at me, beckoning me to her table, and I walked over. I really enjoyed the last few days. You see me more often than before. I'm not complaining, but what happened? Is there something going on that I should know about? Nothing like that, as far as I know. I just like seeing you, that's all. Is Robert inside me too? And yes, he's inside. Do you want to meet him? Yes, if it's possible. I need to talk to him about working at an art gallery. I went in and talked to Robert for a bit. Robert was very young to be a president, but I knew that he had made a reputation for himself some time ago. He launched this site, as well as most of the other places, and put them into operation. I knew he owned a good portion of the company. He had a wonderful wife named Hannah, whom I met several times. She looked like your typical trophy wife, blonde, slim, and truly gorgeous. She and Jessica were about the same age and talked often. Bill and I were quite close. While I was there, I asked him point blank, "What do you think of Adam Walker?" At his request, I often spoke about the work of other employees, as he insisted that I take on more responsibility as management. But the issue was mine. Why do you want to know about Adam? Is there something I should know about? I need you to tell me if one of my employees is having problems or causing problems. This is true. Well, I might have big problems with Adam. I don't really like him, and Kyle perhaps. I may have more information for you this weekend, if everything works out as I expect. I'd like to be able to call you at home on Sunday, if that's okay. Otherwise, you'll wait until Wednesday. Let's see. Until then, I'd prefer you not tell anyone about this. Fine, no problem. You'll wait. You know I trust your judgment on these things. You have always been fair in your assessments, and I respect that. I would just like you to consider taking the position of vice president that I offered you. As per your request, I still haven't mentioned this to Jessica, but she should know about it. In fact, if you don't tell her soon, I will. I'm just waiting for the right time to bring this up. This means a lot of changes for us, so I wanted some time to think about it. They'll be sure to let you know next week. Is it coming? This is cool. So, are you finally going to look into it? I promise I will. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, so I need to make a decision soon for my own reasons. I walked out of his office, stopping to say a few words to Jessica before heading towards Kyle at his desk. I stopped for a second and said loud enough for Adam to hear that I thought his assessment of Adam's performance was correct. I then gave him a thumbs up to let him know that I had heard his conversation with Adam. His eyes opened very wide. But like me, he said nothing. He just nodded. I patted him on the back as I removed the small transmitter as before. He felt nothing. I finished the day without any distractions and waited for Jessica before heading home. I wanted to tell her that I needed to take the van to someone and that I would catch a taxi to my car so I would be a little late. She kissed me goodbye and went home. I noticed Adam standing by the door, watching her leave. He looked at me and turned away to return to his seat. I parked the van, locked the camera in position, making sure it captured the right room the clerk gave me. I locked it and reminded the motel owner that I was supposed to leave it there for the night and maybe tomorrow. I slipped him another $20 and thanked him for his understanding. He put the money in his pocket and shook hands with me. I went home. Friday night at home was another surprise. Jessica ordered pizza for the kids and said she made sure they went to Grandma's that evening. I asked why, and she said she enjoyed Thursday night so much that she wanted to continue it tonight. Do you mind? Not so much. Well, Friday night was almost the same as Thursday night, except we did something new. While I was enjoying it, I had a sickening feeling thinking about where she could have learned all this. But when I asked her about it later, she giggled and pulled a book out of her nightstand and showed me an article about making love after 35. It turned out that most of what we'd been doing the last 2 nights wasn't without reason. I really enjoyed it that night. I tried to do everything she wanted me to do and succeeded most of the night, but I promised myself that I would take some measures. We lay next to each other, and I finally plucked up the courage to ask her where all this came from. Jessica, I like what we do, and I really want to please you, but I have to ask, where does it come from? Why now? If I didn't trust you so much, I wonder if there might be a guilty conscience involved. Sorry. Michael, Hannah told me something last week that I can't repeat. I just keep thinking about us and the girls and our life together, and it makes me so happy. Sometimes, I just need to express myself. It turns out that I chose this path because I wanted to show how much you mean to me. I listened, and seeing her happy made my heart burn, but the next moment I wondered if this was true. Then how can she have an affair? Should I ask her? I'm glad you feel that way. Are you sure I make you happy enough? Are you satisfied with our relationship, or are you missing something? Is that why you were doing all this new stuff? Tell me honestly. I love the way we spend time together, and you have always satisfied me in every way. I have no reason to want more, but I just don't want us to get into a rut where we get so used to everything that we let it become routine with no interest. Can't you see it? Don't you want me to always be desired by you? You'll never have to worry about that. I love you and always will. I can't imagine anything ruining what we have. That's good because I want it. You are mine now and forever. We spent the rest of the night in each other's arms and woke up the same way. I was pleasantly exhausted but wanted to shower with Jessica. I shook her and pulled her into the shower with me. She went willingly and with mock irritation. She complained bitterly about being taken out of her warm bed, but when I let her go, she didn't leave. We turned on the water, and she quickly moved into the spray, turning to hold out her arms for me to join her. We lathered each other up, paying special attention to each other's more interesting features. Soon, we both felt affectionate and shared moments of closeness. When I asked, she said she was ready for that day, but was expecting something more that night. With that, we finished showering and getting dressed. Early in the morning, I drove to the motel and made sure everything was ready. I set all the timers to start at 1 p.m. and made sure the audio recording would last at least 5 hours. The video was written to a DVD and would take at least 7 hours after compression. This would cover the entire day. I initiated the sequences and locked the van. When these two lovers entered their private space, they would become the stars of my new film, and the first screening would make a very loud impression on everyone involved. I drove home to pick up my clubs and wish my beloved wife a good day. That day was terrible. In any case, I was playing golf with 2 guys I met at the club, and if my score was any indication, they must have felt like I was wasting my money on the club membership. I ended up buying beer for all of us like a big loser. It was just after 5 p.m. when I drove to the van to make sure everything was okay. I looked around the room but didn't see any cars or any activity, so I assumed everyone had already left. Of course, I quickly called my home phone, and Jessica answered. I just told her I was on my way and hung up. Since the meeting time with Jessica was so close, I drove home without reviewing the information I had collected. I really wanted to have this before dinner, but then I thought about our planned evening. Why not enjoy what she had to offer just one more time? After all, I enjoyed spending time with her, And even if she had been unfaithful, it shouldn't ruin my evening. I thought about it, but found that I was starting to choke again. Why is she doing this to me? I love her more than I could imagine, and I don't know how I would live without her. I knew that if I had the information I expected to see on the surveillance tapes, I would have to confront her. I loved her, but I couldn't accept her behavior. What about the children? She was a good mother, and she should have custody. It would only be right if she had a reason that I didn't know about. She was a good person who did a bad thing. Okay, I could live with that. She could raise the children, and I would pay child support. These were the thoughts that occupied my mind as I drove home to meet my wife. I wasn't sure I could survive the evening, but I had to try. I couldn't press charges against her until I had proof. There was a tiny voice in the back of my mind that constantly denied all the information I had so far. It insisted that something was wrong. I ignored it. Facts are facts, and soon I will have all the facts I need. At home, Jessica had already showered and dressed. She said she would add the finishing touches when it was time to go out. In the meantime, I rushed to get ready, and we were able to leave in time to meet our table reservation. My wife was wonderful. She was always noticed when we entered the room. She was used to receiving glances from admiring men and simply ignoring them, but I noticed, and that always made me proud. Tonight was a reminder of what could have happened. She was also smart and played an excellent dinner partner. We discussed everything that a husband and wife discuss when they have free time, and drank wine at dinner. More than me, since I was the driver, she really seemed to be connecting with me. My wife of 11 years and the mother of my 2 girls made advances towards me. It almost broke my heart to realize that she could have spent hours with another man that same day and was now connecting with her husband over dinner. As we finished the dessert of chocolate mousse preceded by some sorbet, we looked at each other and smiled. We were both ready to move into the bedroom. That evening, I signaled to the waiter for the bill while Jessica went to the restroom. We walked out hand in hand and walked to the car. As I turned onto Main Street and headed toward our house, Jessica walked up to me and leaned her head against my shoulder. She lifted her hand to remove one of my hands from the steering wheel and lowered it to my lap. With little prompting, I hugged her like we did when we were young and in love for the first time. She sighed and relaxed. We drove home like this, slowly but comfortably. At home, Jessica was walking around the house doing all those little preparations to get things done. Finally, she looked at me. "Shouldn't we go upstairs and pick up where we left off this morning? I think you owe me something since you only gave me a down payment earlier. Remember?" I remember. Lead, and I will follow. We quickly went upstairs to the bedroom, and Jessica stood in front of the bed. I stripped down to my boxers and socks. She took off her top and bra, leaving only one strand of pearls on. She reached out to remove it, but I stopped her. "Leave them alone. You look so lovely standing here, wearing nothing but the pearls around your neck. You are incredibly beautiful. I could watch you all night. This is something only you will see. I am completely yours, and I want you to do whatever you want with me. I want this night to be the first night of the rest of our lives together. Are you sure? Is this what you want? I wouldn't do anything to hurt you or make you feel ashamed. You should know that I trust you completely and give myself completely to you. I love you with all my heart." At that moment, I believed her and knew that no matter what I found the next day, I would never give up on her. I would put it off until tomorrow. Today, I will love this woman with all my heart. That night, we did something I had never done before. We shared moments of intimacy that felt magical. Sometimes she would laugh and quote lines when I asked her about her thoughts, but it was a magical night. We fell asleep in each other's arms and woke up late Sunday morning. She didn't want to get up, so I suggested an encore of one of our favorites from the night before. She quickly agreed, and we shared another intimate moment before finally getting up. Sunday meant she had to pick up the girls. I said that I needed to get there quickly to check on the van, and that I would be home soon. She said she would probably stay at her mom's for a while before returning. This left me time to get the tapes from the van and see what they contained. I still had to check what I left in her purse and call, but that could be done later. She left, and I drove to the van. I got all the films and prints out with no problem, and took the van back to the production facility. I called a taxi to pick me up, and take me back to my car and drive home. The first thing I did was look at the GPS printout. It told me that her car was indeed on Birch Road where the motel was, and from that moment, my heart almost stopped beating. I hoped against hope, but apparently it didn't happen. I almost didn't bother to go any further but wanted to watch the video for myself to confirm. I turned on the TV and DVD player, inserted the DVD, pressed play, and sat down to have my heart broken. The picture was perfect, and the room was in the center of the screen. I fast-forwarded until I saw a car approaching and slowed down to normal speed. I saw clearly and distinctly Adam Walker get out of the car and open the door to the room. He entered and closed the door. I rewound again until another car appeared. I watched as a woman came out and walked to the door. She knocked, and Adam opened the door. He smiled, and the woman approached him as she entered the room. She turned to look around, and I saw her face. My heart started beating in my chest, and my pulse was going through the roof. I paused the video, went back to the beginning, and watched it all the way through before extracting it. Damn it, I said to myself. I had to immediately call Robert Jameson at home. There was one address I wanted to check, so I pulled my wife's address book out of my desk drawer. Sure enough, the address I needed was there, and it was what I thought it might be. I smiled to myself. Now I had all the information I needed to correct the situation. I called Robert at home, and he listened as I told him I needed to talk to him immediately. He told me to come, but I insisted that we meet somewhere else alone, just him and me. He refused, but finally agreed to meet me at the grill restaurant near the office. We met there an hour later. Jessica and the girls called and said they were going to dinner at her mom's and would be home later. This gave me the time I needed. I went to the grill and met with Robert. I wanted to talk to him before I showed him the DVD I brought. A portable player with a 9-inch screen and headphones, so he could watch it there in privacy. He listened to me, and I could see him getting angrier and angrier. At first, he refused to believe me and repeated, "This is not true. Jessica could never do anything like that." I played the tape of Adam meeting with Jessica and then outlined everything up to this point, making sure that Kyle and Adam were completely involved in all of this. Kyle was less to blame, but what he hid was the beginning of the end for both of them. When he heard Adam talking about Jessica, his face turned red, and he became furious. He personally hired Jessica and always treated her with respect, but I calmed him down and told him to watch the DVD before he said more. While he was watching the DVD, I saw his face fall. The pain was obvious, and I looked away to give him some privacy. He watched it all, and finally stopped playing. He looked at me, and I waited until he was ready. My only request, I said, I want them both fired for violating the morals clause in their employment contracts, and I want them gone by Wednesday afternoon. If you agree with this, with all the information I have, you can do whatever you want. I will never mention this again. Robert looked at me in surprise but began to smile. It was nice to see that smile. I didn't want him to be involved any more than necessary. I give you my word this will be done first thing Wednesday, and I will personally escort them from the premises. They are like dead to me. I can also take further action, but it's better that you don't know what it might be. Fair enough, I replied. After that, I gave him a bag with all the surveillance data, with the exception of one small cassette, which I kept for myself. I needed it for my own purposes. My wife was in for a surprise. Robert and I talked for another hour or so and made some additional decisions that I will take care of later this week. We shook hands as we parted, and Robert spoke to me again before I left. You are a good and decent person, Michael. I appreciate what you did and respect your actions in this matter. Things could have gone very badly if you were hotter. You have my gratitude and my respect. I felt better than I had for a while. I went home to see my family. They had no idea about the coming changes. That evening, everything was fine at home, and I was in a very good mood. Jessica wanted to know what happened, that I told her she'd find out at work tomorrow. We were very tired from the nights before, so we went to bed early just to sleep. Jessica wanted me to hug her, and I was very happy to do so. We fell asleep in each other's arms, just like the night before. Wednesday at work was full of activity. Jessica called me at 9:30 a.m. to find out what had happened. I feigned ignorance and asked for details. She said Robert asked her to invite Kyle Roberts and Adam Walker to his office immediately. She said that they were both there now, and that they were all screaming. I said that I was completely confused and asked her to let me know what else happened. She called 20 minutes later and said Robert had asked her to get security to come see him immediately. She covered the phone while talking to someone at her desk, and then came back to tell me that Robert had asked security to escort Kyle and Adam back to their desks. She quickly hung up and promised to call back. I didn't hear anything from her for the next hour until she finally called to say that both Kyle and Adam had been fired and that Robert wanted her to type up disciplinary letters for both. The reason for their dismissal was a violation of the morals clause. She was very excited. This was the most unusual thing that had happened in her time as Tom's secretary. She demanded that we go to lunch together and discuss it. I agreed. Over lunch, Jessica continued to talk about what had happened that morning. She told me they were both escorted out of the building and warned never to return. She said Robert had been angry and agitated all morning and even yelled at her once before quickly apologizing. Finally, she ran downstairs and asked me, "What is it? How do I know anything about this?" Robert told her to ask me. When I asked him, he said, "Ask Michael. He knows everything about it, and he's the one who opened my eyes to a lot of things." That's what he said. So go ahead and shoot before I tell you what happened. I want you to listen to this tape first. I gave her a tape of Kyle and Adam talking about the motel. She began to listen with interest, and then I watched as her face turned pale. She looked at me with her eyes wide open and her mouth making an "oh" surprise shape. She listened to the end, and then angrily took off her headphones. "It is not true. He's lying. I never went to any motel with him, and I never would. You can't believe this recording. Is this what you gave Robert? Does he believe this too?" "No, he doesn't believe Adam, and neither do I. I have something to explain to you, and I want you to just listen to me the whole time. Will you do this?" When I said I didn't believe the tape, she relaxed a little but was still angry and a little scared. She just nodded and indicated to begin. I heard Kyle and Adam talking a little over a week ago. Adam told Kyle about you and him at the party. He said he got you drunk and then took you to his car, and you had a private moment in the back seat. He was very detailed and described what he did and what you did and told it all to Kyle. Kyle listened and believed what he heard. You'd be glad to know that he was so impressed that he wanted Adam to include him in the next meeting. I was confused and tried to figure out how he could tell the truth. I couldn't believe it, but I had to be sure. Jessica tried to interrupt me before I could continue, but I just didn't let her say a word. I needed to quickly uncover the truth before it exploded. I told Kyle to talk to Adam, and Adam said he booked a motel room on Birch Road for Sunday afternoon when you were supposed to get your hair done. I was upset because how could he know about your meeting with the hairdresser if you didn't tell him? Do you remember I mentioned Sunday to you? We made plans for this evening, but he hasn't been there since. I calmed her down with a wave of my hand and trudged on. I decided to be absolutely sure it was really you, so I used one of the company's surveillance vans and set it up to track your car and take video of whoever came into the motel room. I asked the receptionist to give me the room number so that I would know where to record everything and watch it on Sunday. It was after this that I called Robert and gave him everything. Kyle and Adam were fired at my request. Jessica listened to me as I told her this story. She was still confused and couldn't believe that I thought she was the one with him at the motel. but I wasn't with him. I styled my hair just like I told you. My salon is on Birch Road, but I didn't know about any motel. Do you not believe me? I actually know who he was with because she told me herself. I quickly continued, cutting her off before she could let it out. I had to convince her that I trusted her all along. This is not the truth, but the wisest thing. Yes, I said. I believe you, and he'll tell you why. I received a video of Adam that day, and he was indeed visited by a woman just as he claimed. The woman who visited him in that motel room was Tom's wife, Hannah. I first suspected this after talking to Nathan Clark a few days ago. Since Adam claimed that he took you to his car that night, I asked Nathan if you were a little drunk, and he just laughed, telling me that you and his wife were drinking together that night and were inseparable. You even asked her if she would stay with her to dissuade Adam from asking her to dance. He said it was clear you weren't interested in Adam. When I asked him if Adam ever suggested taking you outside to get some air, he just laughed and didn't say anything. So you really had doubts about me. Did you set this up to spy on me? I'm not sure I like it. Did you really not trust me, even after Thursday evening, Friday evening, and again on Sunday? Of course I trusted you, but I couldn't explain Justin's story. Why would he say such things if they are not true? Then it occurred to me that he was trying to distract Kyle from who was really with him. If Kyle thinks it's you, he won't ask any more questions. I had no idea who it was, so I had to find out the truth. I just wish it wasn't Tom's wife. He was devastated. We talked some more and finally had to return from lunch. Jessica accepted my story about trying to find out who Adam was with, and I left her alone. I did have some doubts, and I was ashamed of it, but I didn't regret knowing the truth. We were in a good place now, and I didn't want that to change. Things had calmed down at work that day, but Jessica called me and told me Robert wanted her to come talk to him later that day. I said, I really didn't know what it was about, and I think she believed me. I didn't hear anything more until that evening at home. We ate dinner. The girls were active as usual with phone calls and bathroom appointments, and other things only they understood, but they finally curled up and went to bed. We enjoyed the silence for a while, until Jessica told me what Robert wanted. He told me to think about how lucky I am to have a man like you as a husband. He talked about trust, respect, and love, what it all meant, and what it was like to lose it. Finally, he told me about Hannah, and what she had done, and asked for my advice. What did you tell him? Were you able to help him? Couldn't tell him what to do. I just asked him if he really loved her, and if he could forgive her if possible. I convinced him to talk to her and let her explain herself, but I told him that if he couldn't get past this and forgive her, then he should leave her right away. Don't drag your feet, and don't let things become bitter. He listened to what I said, so maybe I helped. I'm sure it helped. He didn't mention anything about me. No, nothing more. Is there something else? Well, yes, there is. Robert offered me a position as the corporation's vice president of investigations. I would have complete control of all investigators in all offices around the world, and I would have a choice of where I lived. We could move to California or Florida, or wherever we have a branch office with more than 5 investigators. I will still report to Robert, but only to him. This will mean a lot more money as well as benefits such as shares and other things. Jessica screamed and jumped into my lap, hugging my neck. She couldn't let me go and couldn't stop laughing with joy. When did it happen? Is it because of what you did today? Is this some kind of reward? Now who doubts whom? Robert suggested this to me 6 months ago. I just wasn't ready to think about it until now. I think the thought of losing everything I've done somehow made my choice more real. For a while last week, I thought I might have lost you. This got me thinking, Michael, you could never lose me like this. I won't go to anyone else. It will never happen, and you will never think like that again. Can you hear me? Never again. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.